So how y'all doing today? So it's my pleasure to be asked to introduce our keynote speaker for this morning. Some of the adjectives that I want to use before I introduce Leah Penniman is extraordinary, humble, humanitarian, knowledgeable, genius. Those are the words that I want to throw out and sort of name her and claim her as I've been an admirer of her, a person that I met several years ago at a NOFA conference, passing along a piece of paper for Black and people of color to come into a room to talk about issues. It has never been done before, to allow a space where Black people and people of color could sit in a room and look around and see familiar faces and talk about issues pertaining to the Black economy, Black agriculture, and Black social issues. Right then and there, I knew that this person was going to make an imprint in the agricultural movement. Fast forward, she has been a champion for social injustice causes for all people. Her and her partner started Soul Fire Farm. How many of you know Soul Fire Farm? Let's give a shout out to that. She has had a vision to bring Black and brown young youth during the summer months so they can talk about their future, their participation. She has been around the country talking about racial issues, breaking down barriers, making sure that the conversation is inclusive. And now, our Bible. How many people have this book? By the end of the day, everyone should have this book. This book should be by your side because it talks about her journey, the history of our ancestors. She has supplied information about how to farm, shared crop planning and crop rotation, shared her business plan in this book, but most of all, was able to capture the message from our ancestors, how important agriculture is to us. So without further ado, get up off your feet and welcome the genius, the person that she is, Leah Penniman.
I love you so much as I trip on you.
No,
oh my God, thank you.
Watch this thing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mama Karen, so much. Mama Karen's a mentor of mine going back to when I was a teenager, so it's really an honor to have your approval and have your love, and I thank you for that. I'm not a singer, but I'm going to offer a little song. It's a traditional Ghanaian song to open our hearts to give thanks. It's in the Krobo language, and it translates as, we give thanks to the universe with all our hearts. Wanamos yo, wanamos yo, isaka wanamo, syo isaka wanamos yo. And the first thing that we offer thanks for today is the Lenape nation, the Lenape people, upon whose ground we stand. We give thanks for the 10,000 plus years of stewardship of this land. And we also offer our remorse and our shame and our sadness and our commitment for the ways that our people participated in exile and genocide, forcing many of the Lenape off their land. And the ways that all of us who are not indigenous continue to benefit from settler privilege on this sacred ground. So we give thanks, and we also offer our commitment not just to name the Lenape and the Abenaki and the Wampanoag and the Nipmuc and the Mohican, but also to commit our energy to rematriation and reparations for the people whose lives and land have been lost. We give thanks in this moment also to our grandma's grandma's grandma, who, when they were kidnapped from the shores of West Africa, from Dahomey and the Gold Coast, made the bold and beautiful decision to braid their seed heritage into their children's hair. They are the reason that we have okra and cotton and sesame and black-eyed pea and melon and rice and basil and coffee and palm and kola nuts, because they believed, even facing an uncertain future, facing the transatlantic slave kidnapping, they believed in a future of tilling and reaping on soil, and they believed in our existence. So we give thanks to these grandmothers for the heritage of seed, and for helping us understand that the seed is the very most valuable thing that we have. We give thanks also to the earth herself. She is the source of all the waters and the soil and all the nourishment on our plates, the cool air that we breathe. We give thanks to the earth, and we apologize for the ways that we harm. And we also want to give thanks and name the African indigenous people who taught us how to care properly for the earth. And we'll name them specifically. We won't generalize and we won't appropriate. We will name specifically thanks for the Ovambo people of Namibia for teaching us how to mound our soil into permanent raised beds to prevent erosion and to allow for water to infiltrate and provide resistance against hurricane and drought. And we want to thank the people of Kenya and the Mixteco and Southeast Asia for teaching us the practice of fanya juu, which means throw it upwards. It's how we make a terrace. It's how we are able to farm on marginal sloped lands without losing all of our soil. We give thanks to the Yoruba for the very first texture by feel soil testing and the very first pH testing where they used their tongue to determine whether a soil was sweet or bitter, acidic or basic. We give thanks to the women in Ghana who created the first dark earth by combining bone char together with scraps from their kitchens and residues from their animals and the ash from their cooking fires. And in their communities, you could tell how old the community was by the depth of the African dark earth, because each generation was required to contribute to the fertility of the soil. We give thanks to those Ghanaian grandmothers. We give thanks to Egyptian farmers and farmers from the Sahel for our first irrigation systems, the Fogara and ditching irrigation, upon which all later irrigation systems are based. We give thanks to the farmers of Guinea for rotational grazing and for pastured livestock, for the guinea hen, for the idea that one year you can put your livestock and they will fertilize the ground, and the next year you can plant your crops and reap that fertility, and then you continue the rotation. And in that way your soil is not depleted over time, and you have complete nutrition and you have balance in your diet. We give thanks to the farmers of Burundi for teaching us how to preserve our foods using fermentation and ash, knowing that if you put a tomato into sifted ash, 6 months later the tomato is still fresh, without any contribution to climate change, without burning any fossil fuels. We give thanks to the people of Dahomey for the dokpwe and the people of Haiti for the kombit. These were the first collective work parties. On Saturday, I go to your house and plant beans, and then the next week to yours to plant beans, and then to yours. And when you come over, I'll give you a big pot of soup, and there will be singing, and there will be drumming and dancing, and then our harvest will also be staggered so we can support each other in this way. We can share the labor and also share the joy of working the land together. We give thanks to the women of Nigeria and of the Caribbean for the susu, the first credit union. We can pool our money together, a little bit every month from each of us, and then when you need funds to capitalize your farm or your market stall, you can draw that out of the communal pot, of which you are a member and an owner. We give thanks to the Krobo people and all indigenous people for the Millet Festival, for the Harvest Festival, for the Planting Festival, for knowing that the earth is alive. She is not a material thing here for a transactional relationship with human beings. The earth is a sovereign, living being. And for reminding us that when we do not pray, when we do not offer libation, when we do not offer thanks, when we do not ask permission, we are bastardizing that sacred covenant that we have with the earth. We give thanks to Yakuba Sawadogo and all the farmers in Burkina Faso for their climate resilience in taking the ancient tradition of making a zai or tassa pit to turn the Sahel from desert back into forest, digging these ditches that can catch rain and filling them with manure so that trees can grow again in a place where there was no vegetation. We give thanks to the farmers of West Africa who curated the first pelargonium, the scented geranium, which is the best plant to bioaccumulate the lead in the soil that now plagues our urban farms. We thank them for carrying that seed in their hair so that we could heal the soils that would harm our children. We thank the farmers in Haiti for giving us mindfulness practice. They balance stone on the edges of their farm, believing that if you slow down and pay enough attention, you can find the center balance point of the stone and stack them tall. And in that listening practice, you become an earth warrior. We also thank the farmers of Haiti for restoring the soil that the French and Spanish and English stole away by planting their ancient crop of vetiver on the hillsides and bringing back the forest from almost none to 30% of the land cover. We give thanks to Fannie Lou Hamer and the Freedom Farm Cooperative and all the Black farmers who developed cooperatives from the late 1800s to present, believing that we don't have to subscribe to the Western notion of private property. We can farm together, we can share our homes and resources for education. We even have a pig bank, so a pregnant sow will be out for loan and you can take it, take the piglet and return the sow back to the communal holding. We give thanks to Larry Eatlong and Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta and all the United Farm Workers and Immokalee workers and other freedom fighters amongst the Latinx and Southeast Asian community and Caribbean community. Over 80% of our food is grown by people who are labeled as farm workers and not farmers in the United States, most of whom were born outside of these imaginary borders. And we give thanks for their ongoing struggle for equal rights and protection. We give thanks to Dr. George Washington Carver of Tuskegee University in Alabama, who was the very first professor in the United States of agriculture to teach regenerative organic farming. Thank you. A whole generation before Rodale. We give thanks for the leguminous intercropping and the compost strategies and the livestock integration strategies. And for his protege, Dr. Booker T. Watley, who brought us the CSA, brought us Pick Your Own, brought us strategies like diversified horticulture, which we now take for granted as the obvious choice for a farmer to grow a lot of different vegetables. We give thanks for the Black Panther Party and their free breakfast program, providing an example of how we can feed the community regardless of ability to pay and without undermining our own economic solvency. We give thanks to Hattie Carthen and the urban farmers who took the agrarian legacy of the Black South and made it work in the paved streets of the urban North. And we give thanks finally for the Haitian peasant movement, for taking a stand against Monsanto. After the earthquake in 2010, when Monsanto sponsored a generous donation of GMO seed and the barges poured into Port-au-Prince, the farmers knew how that story went. A couple years of seed dependency, the depletion of their native reserves, and complete reliance on a foreign corporation for seed and fertilizer. And they burned the shipment, and they won the Global Food Sovereignty Prize of 2013. We give thanks for all of the Black, Indigenous, Earthkeepers, the Seed Keepers, the Movement Keepers, and we pray for the strength and the fortitude and the wisdom to honor and carry on that legacy. in our conversations today, in our work back at our own farms, in every word that comes out of our mouth as relates to land and food and agriculture, we pray to honor their sacrifice and struggle and to never again erase them. Ashe, ashe, asheo.
Leah, thank you so, so much for coming and sharing that beautiful history with us. And thank you, and as we were speaking of gratitude, just thank you to all of you here today that graciously challenge us to make this space and every space a more equitable place in this world of food and farming. So thank you.